Thank you very much, Umberto, for being here for this interview about the 50 years of ICAZ.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
Yes, I have a few questions to ask you. And I would like to start with the history of the whole thing. How and at what point in your career did you get involved with ICAZ?
To be honest with you, I can't remember when it was the first moment, but I seem to have been kind of aware of ICAZ for all my career since I started at the very beginning. Obviously, there must have been a moment in which I did become aware, but I can't remember when it was. But one thing in the kind of history of my relationship with ICAZ that is probably relevant is that I remember I desperately wanted to go to the ICAZ conference in Washington in 1990, and I was too poor to go, and I very much regretted that. And so my first ICAZ conference was in Constance in Germany in 1994, but by the time I was already 32, so it was relatively late for a beginner, but in a way it had to do with kind of my life history and the history of my career and my development. Yeah.
And if you compare from back then, the first ICAZ conferences that you've been to with nowadays, in terms of the thematic diversity that archaeologists are engaged with, what are your impressions?
I think there are some very important differences, but also some similarities, because from my very first contact with the ICAZ community, I did get the impression of a very kind of welcoming and inclusive community. You have to bear in mind that when I got first involved, I wasn't particularly well known. And despite that, I felt welcome, and I felt that it was a nice and friendly place where to be, and that is something that of course has remained. But it was important that even in those early times, that kind of feeling existed. I think academically there have been many changes, and I probably would say that at the time there was more a clear division between the zooarchaeologists with the biological background and the zooarchaeologists with a more archaeological background. And it's a tribute to our work that those divisions are much less stark today than they were at the time. And I think one other thing that we have achieved is that, for instance, if I think back at the conference of 1994, there was a very strong regional separation. So, for instance, the conference, we would have sessions which were focused on different regional areas. Scientifically there is nothing wrong with that, but it didn't encourage the mixing of different approaches. And I remember when I co-organized the Durham conference in 2002, one of our aims was to move very strongly towards a thematic approach. And the reason for that was that we wanted people from different parts of the world to get together, basically to make use of the fact that the ICAZ was a fully international conference, to encourage a context in which people from a diversity of different countries would end up being in the same room.
Yeah, and I guess that grouping, the geographical interest is served nowadays by the existence of working groups. So in a way that is served.
And in a way, there are plenty of conferences that have a regional focus. Yes. And our point was, what's the point of having, a group of, let's say, of Britons or Australians or Argentinians, who might actually see each other within the same country and just move to the other part of the world and being just the same people in the same room. Yeah.
So what impact did ICAZ have in your professional and I would add personal development?
I mean, absolutely huge, absolutely huge. I have to say that professionally, I learned a lot through ICAZ, attending ICAZ conferences, attending ICAZ working groups, communicating with people through ICAZ, and also because I've also been involved with the management of ICAZ, obviously I've learned a lot through that. But perhaps the greatest impact has been emotional, because if I think back to my first ICAZ conference, that was the opportunity to meet people who became really lifelong friends. And if I think at that conference, I met people like Laszlo Bartosiewicz, Arturo Morales, Itomi Hongo, John Driver, Betsy Wright, Luis Borrero. I mean, all people who have remained very close to my life. But, I think the other thing is that I spent the first part of my career in great isolation. I studied natural sciences in Naples, in southern Italy, and for years I was the only zooarchaeologist in the whole of southern Italy. I basically learned from books and from practical experience that I created for myself. So I was almost entirely self-taught, and for years I had zero contact with any zooarchaeology. You have also to consider at the time we didn't have internet, we didn't have mobile phones, we didn't have computers really, and so communication was far more difficult. And then ICAZ was just an opportunity, a fantastic opportunity for me to get in touch with the international community. And I remember just this feeling of saying, thinking, this is where I belong, this is where I want to be, I just want to be part of this world. I don't want to be an Italian who is doing zooarchaeology or an Italian moved to Britain. I just want to be an international researcher and forget about national borders. And ICAZ really contribute to that. And it's as I said before, it was a matter of academic and professional development, but it was also important in matter of emotional development for me.
Nice. Everybody wants to belong, and the feeling of belonging is very
it's
pleasant,
very nice.
very
Yes,
good for
very
everybody.
nice. Yeah.
How do you think ICAZ contributed to regional zooarchaeology, both in terms of content and I'll rephrase this. So, how do you think ICAZ contributed to regional zooarchaeology, both in content and community development?
Well, obviously it depends for different regions, and we have been probably more effective in some areas than others. I think ICAZ has done a fantastic job for many, many years, but we have also to be careful not to romanticize excessively its success, and there are still some areas where there is a lot of work to be done. However, all in all, I would say that there has been a very conscious effort to support and encourage local communities of zooarchaeologists, especially in areas where provisions and facilities are less readily available. So I think we have helped the development of those communities. So I think, yes, it has had an impact, and I think the other aspect is that for some regional communities of zooarchaeologists, the feeling that they were part of also an international organization has actually helped them also on the local level. It may sound apparently contradictory, but in fact I don't think it is, because I actually think that you can develop your research regionally better when you know that you are part of something that is bigger, and you know, you can focus on very local research questions but with a very international approach. Okay, so just to say, okay, I want to know what has happened in this very specific place in the distant past, but I want to approach that kind of inquiry with an international mind, and I think ICAZ has helped to develop that kind of approach.
It's very useful to me in that respect. So Umberto, you've been a long-standing member of the International Committee of ICAZ. In the past, you've been also the secretary. You have served ICAZ in several posts. What motivated you to do that?
Okay, well, first let me tell you, I'm not naturally a committee person, you know, and in fact I became a member of the International Committee because I was asked to become one. And it was at that time when I co-organized the ICAZ conference in Durham in 2002. And I remember Mindy Zide was then the president, suggested my name as a kind of, in recognition also for the work I had done to organize the conference, and I was elected. And you know, because I cared so much about ICAZ, I was pleased to serve on that committee because I knew that it would provide me with an opportunity to help, but at the same time it was useful for me as an experience of getting even closer contact with the organization, and especially with the people, with the human beings who were there. And in fact it proved to be like that. And then after a few years, perhaps people saw that I was active. I had done probably a decent job in organizing the conference in Durham. I had co-created the Zooarchaeology. I was very active in the international community. Actually, the committee asked me if I wanted to stand as secretary. That was a difficult decision to take, so I had to think long and hard if I would do that. And I decided to stand, and I was elected. And the funny thing is that the other person who was standing at the time was Betsy Wright. And you know, such a household name in the world of Zooarchaeology, and I felt a little bit awkward that I was eventually elected, because let me tell you something, Betsy is one of the most inspirational people I have met through ICAZ. I mean, she's just a model academic for me, just a fantastic person and fantastic researcher. So I felt a little bit humbled by that kind of experience. But when I was elected, Betsy sent me an email and she said something that was funny. She said, "I think you're the loser here." I mean, she was absolutely right. Obviously, she was saying it
alluding to the
workload, and you know. But obviously, she was saying in a nice, friendly, and funny way, you know, and. Yeah, but we have always been very good friends, and you know, such a great person. Yeah. So, and eventually, so it was to be the experience being secretary was very formative for me. I think it provided me to give an important contribution to the life organization. I said it was very hard work. It was a bit of a pity I had for personal and family reasons. I had to stand down 2 years before my term ended. But you know, those 6 years were really quite exciting, actually.
Yeah. So, beyond promoting zooarchaeological research, how do you think ICAZ has contributed towards a better world?
Yeah, it's a very, very important question, which is very close to my heart. And I have always felt that although it's actually very important to have a professional organization that has, the aim of supporting a very specific research community, that in itself is very noble purpose and aim. Um, Personally, I always wanted ICAZ to be a little bit more than that, and I hope it doesn't come across as sort of arrogant to say that I think it has been. You know, I say arrogant because it doesn't affect just me person, but it's in a way I'm kind of praising my own research community. And I think in what way? Well, first in promoting this kind of no border approach. Okay, just to say we're all researchers. Who cares about national borders? I mean, it did start with the fact that ICAZ, well before I got involved, was actually promoting the communication between people from the east of the world and the west of the world at the time when they were very heavily separated. Now we are again separated, but in a different way. And so that really characterized ICAZ, and that was very important. And I think that kind of approach to try to put people together has continued. Not without challenges, because obviously you can imagine the world is a very divided place, and we have to come to terms with that. But I think we have given our little contribution to make sure that people would be supported regardless of the country they're coming from. I think the other thing that has been important in terms of ICAZ has been the opportunity for people also to come together regardless of their academic status. I think I have loved the fact that when at ICAZ largely, probably there have been exceptions, but largely you are treated as a human being, regardless whether you're a student, a professor, an amateur, a freelancer, or whatever is your job. And I think it has been our way, because sometimes academic hierarchy mirrors the separation of social classes, and I think we have given our contribution to fight that kind of discrimination, really. And then in many other ways, if I can just mention another one, has been kind of the informality of approach, the fact that people are not stuck up, and you would feel that you are part of that community. I think very few people are afraid of speaking, whatever the status, and overall friendliness has been I know has been an example for many other organizations. I have been told many times that people see ICAZ, people from other fields, both within archaeology and also outside archaeology. People who are familiar with ICAZ, they see it as an example of how an organization should be run in that respect. And when I was secretary, one of the things that I tried to establish is that we could be a full professional organization which sticks to the rules, which is important for democratic decision making. I mean, you need to have rules, and you need to be professional. I mean, too much informality sometimes means that there is just a clique who decides things. So I think, but it's possible to have that professionalism combined with the friendliness and informality. So it's you don't have to wear a suit to be professional. You can be in sandals and shorts like those I'm wearing now,
Yes, exactly.
and just do things properly. And I think that's something that perhaps was a little bit missing at the beginning. When ICAZ was created, it wasn't a membership organization. It took a while to become a proper organization, but we did achieve that. And I think in many respects, still work to do, but largely mission accomplished.
Cough now. Just holding it till the end of this question, which we can cut now.
My phone was beeping.
I think it's quite minimal disruption, and
Okay.
they will cut pieces of
Okay,
this.
right.
Anyway, last question. This is kind of the $1,000,000 question, Umberto. It's about how you see the future of zooarchaeology and ICAZ.
It's a difficult question, because I actually think in many respects that zooarchaeology is in a wonderful position, because it has been going from strength to strength in the last couple of decades, and people, well, we have achieved many things, and now I'm not talking about the organization, but I'm talking about the discipline. As zooarchaeology, we have achieved many things. I think one of our greatest achievements has been to make sure that people realize that the zooarchaeology is placed at the center of archaeological inquiry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not some kind of discipline that supports archaeology, but it is archaeology through and through. And basically almost, well, I would say all archaeological questions can be addressed from a zooarchaeology viewpoint. And we weren't in that position at all some time ago, and we are there. And in doing so, we have also helped in breaking the kind of barrier between a kind of cultural and natural based approach to inquiry regarding our past. And now if you think about the challenges we have in the world, obviously a massive climatic crisis, a massive environmental crisis, massive loss of biodiversity, and to be honest with you, a massive social and political crisis with discrimination and the divide with the rich and the poor becoming bigger and bigger. So I think we do have massive challenges, and I think it is becoming increasingly clear with the climate change crisis that people realize that the social problems we have are very much interconnected with the environmental problems. And I think a discipline like a zooarchaeology that combines basically nature and culture has a huge role to play in understanding what is really our role and our position as humans, as humanity in the world. And I think if we don't have that kind of approach, our planet is totally doomed. And so we do need disciplines like zooarchaeology that actually break that kind of division. In that respect, I think we have a massive role to play, and that the future of zooarchaeology should be bright. The slightly more cautious and maybe less optimistic view is that obviously our future is very much connected and dependent on the future or the politics of the world. And if the various fascisms that are taking place in many countries in the world will have the last say, obviously there is no room for zooarchaeology or archaeology or in fact any other intellectual enterprise that tries to clarify who we are. And I mean, a classic example has been the closure of our Department of Archaeology at the University of Sheffield, as you know very well. That has been a very difficult decision to accept. But where does that come from? It does come from that kind of fascist approach to our understanding of society, that basically you just want something that is useful for an elite rather than something that serves a community. So I think that's the big challenge. Are we going to stand up to that? Are we going to be able, as a researcher, to get our hands dirty, get involved in the real world of political and social problems? I think if we fail to do that, we are doomed. But I think as academics, as researchers, we have responsibility towards the society. And even if we come from different political ideologies, it doesn't really matter. I think an important thing is I know that all zooarchaeologists, most zooarchaeologists I have known, are decent human beings who want to live in a better world. So I think we have a massive role to play there, and we should be prepared to play it.
Okay. Thank you very much, Umberto.
You're welcome.
It's nice. So I hope there is no major, no fatal flaw in any of this.
Okay, I'll stop this and we'll see what has happened.